Welcome to the Relational Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Thompson, joined by my co-host, Austin Hill. Today we're talking about bearing fruit, which is a metaphor for our character and what it looks like to go through what we're calling tough grace as we aim to grow and be healthier. So we hope this conversation is helpful. Thanks for listening. Austin, what's up?
Not much. How are you doing, Wes? It's been a minute.
I'm doing pretty good today. Yeah, it has been a minute, unfortunately. We've been doing a lot of reruns on the podcast. So howdy, everyone. I hope you're well. Today I want to talk about what it looks like to bear fruit, which if you're not a Christian might sound weird, but I'll explain what I mean. When I think about this topic, I'm thinking about, and I'll be honest, I've been going through this personally. I've felt really challenged in my faith in God lately. If we get to the details of this, cool, but that's not my point. But, especially this last weekend, where I felt like God was giving me some, what I'm just calling tough grace. And what I mean by that is sometimes painful challenge and confrontation is good for us. Growth requires some level of discomfort. And I think there's a component of pain avoidance when it comes to addiction. There's a component of pain avoidance when it comes to being a human being. We want to avoid pain. We want to feel good. But what feels good is not always what is good for us. What feels good is not what is always good for us. And I think tough grace in the form of, painful challenge or confrontation is oftentimes what is good for us. So I want to read a passage from John 15. And then we can talk about it and talk about how this shows up. John 15, verses 1. This is going to be a long passage of scripture. So I'll read it and then we can chat about it. But it reads, I am the vine and my Father's the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more beautiful, more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I've spoken to you. Remain in me, and I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. If you remain in me, and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that's thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. That's the passage. There's a lot there. And, we both work at the Refuge. I was reflecting, we've had a tough week at the Refuge. We've had guys, more guys than usual leave and struggle. And that can be heavy on the staff. It's heavy on all of us. We want to see everybody flourish. But what we know about the reality of life is not everybody makes good choices, ourselves included. And how do we learn from that? And so I gave the staff kind of a reflection on pruning as I was reflecting on my own life. And, right at the beginning of that passage, right, it says, I'm the vine, my Father's the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. And he uses this word pruning, right? While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes. And just to explain what that means, like pruning, it's this metaphor of gardening. It's this metaphor, which I'm not good at, but it's, pruning is the practice of removing the parts of a plant to improve its health, to improve its structure, to improve its beauty. And in what I wrote to the staff yesterday, in much of the same way people in teams go through pruning. Growth in this perspective is measured in our transformation. We talk about transformation a lot at the Refuge, changing, right? To become having a healthy character, essentially answering the question like, who am I becoming? Who are we becoming? And and so a lot of us read this passage. I've grown up around the church. If you've grown up around the church, like you might have heard this passage, especially the one where it's like, remain in me and I'll remain in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. It feels great. It feels good. But in reality, pruning is often tough grace. Grace means like God's goodness towards us when we don't deserve it. But tough grace looks like, man, sometimes painful challenge, painful confrontation is what is good for us. It's what's necessary for us. And unfortunately, many of us, myself included, can get into this space of just coasting, if you will, through life and compromising and not taking certain aspects of our walk seriously. And that often ends in sin. It ends in just negativity. It ends, we just get into a funk. And growth requires some level of discomfort. And so in a week like this, I had this personal experience before we were going through all this at the refuge. Um, but even as we've had kind of a tough week at the refuge, just realizing that pruning, although it's painful, can be a really good thing. And so that's a long intro to this, but I'm curious how, since we didn't talk about this ahead of time, how where your mind goes and how you might respond to that, Austin.
Yeah, that is a very big topic. I think one of the things that comes to top of mind for me first, the idea of pruning. When Jesus was talking about it, it was in a sense like the purpose of pruning is so that we can bear more fruit, is so that that tree can bear more fruit in the future. So it's not like God is like, I'm going to hurt you and put you through suffering just because. This is a natural growth, a natural process so that we can become something more beautiful. It's like living more into who we truly are. And pruning does suck. Like, from making it just like, it's painful. And those type of things, when we realize that the purpose of that pain is so that we can get more reps into those difficult situations, so that we are better prepared for them in the future, and that we can help walk alongside those who are suffering also, because we've been through that and have gotten through it, and know that it's not like, man, you're like, let's ignore the pain so because it'll be better. It's not about ignoring the pain. It's about being able to hold it with someone else. And when it's your pain, it's being able to realize that God is doing this in such a way where he is giving us an opportunity to express our own weaknesses so that we can abide more with him, be with him more. So every part of it, like, there's so many different ways to go, but I think it's this really weird, almost, I'd say, countercultural way of looking at how Jesus used strength and power to man, I get emotional thinking about it, where it's just kind of like this is another example of like, it's not like the pain that we're going through doesn't make sense, but the way in which we live life um, is in such a way where we can bear more fruit in the future. And that might mean that I will not experience the good things from that fruit bearing. It could be my kids, or the work that the guys in the refuge are doing. You're pruning things right now that are going to benefit your kids. You may not see that. And that's not why we're going through these difficult things, is so that I can feel better about myself. It's about, how is this benefiting the future of the people I love? And I may not see those things, but the stuff that I'm going through is worth it, because the process in which we are living is so important. It's not just about like the end result. The process in which we're living is just as important. I would say it's more important. In the process, sometimes the process means pruning, and pruning hurts.
Yeah, like the picture I almost like imagine is when when you correlate this idea of pruning a plant with being pruned like in our character, it's almost like I imagine God like cutting out the parts, the unhealthy parts. And although that's painful, um because I don't know, I think for me it's like there's parts of like that I don't want to let go of, but that keep me in this place of fear and keep me in this place of insecurity, like these unhealthy things that are hard to give up. And I tend to want to hide them or avoid them, um, pretend like they're not there or overlook them. But when God kind of makes them apparent, it's like it's painful, right? There's things we avoid, there's things we don't want to address. But when we do, I do think the invitation from God is nearness. Because for me, at least in this season, I'm realizing, amongst other things, that I've just been so self-reliant, and I'm realizing that I literally am have just been dealing with a lot of fear and with a lot of like crippling anxiety. And I'm like, God's like, do you trust me? And I mean, it's embarrassing to say, but the true answer has been no, I have not been. And I desperately need peace. And I think what God is like telling here is like, as my father's loved me, so I love you. And in this pruning, I do think one of the gifts, it's not just like you said, like we think of growth sometimes in terms of like, oh, like I'm going to be reconciled to my family. All my relationships are going to be perfect. I'm going to make more money, all this stuff. And like you said, Austin, like some of those things may or may not happen. But I think the beautiful truth that can happen fairly quickly is that if I'm willing to let God challenge me and let the people of God challenge me and address the unhealth in me, it is a promise of I am with you. God is with me. Um, that peace that surpasses understanding that Paul writes about in Philippians 4, um, when he encourages us in like verse 4, like not to be anxious about anything, but to offer everything to the God. And he says like, I'll give you this peace that surpasses understanding. That doesn't make sense, maybe, you know, because life's uncertain. Like worry and anxiety is a fear of the future and the unknown of the future. Um, and so that might not be what you're dealing with or what others are dealing with. But for me, it's been a reminder that like, I can't do it all. There's a point where it's like, God, I've got to learn to trust you. And, um, that's what we most need. And, and sometimes there's a tough grace associated with that, like a pruning that has to take place. And so that's going to look different for everybody. Cause I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a question for all of us in this moment of just what parts of me am I avoiding? What parts of me need pruned? What am I holding on to? What am I hiding? Um, it's easy to do, right? It's easy to do.
Yeah. I also wonder, or not wonder, I think it'd be good to clarify, because I think you said tough grace or hard grace. What was,
I was just calling it tough grace. Yeah.
yeah, tough. So I think it'd be important to clarify that when you're saying that, what I'm hearing you say is like, we're going to be going through something that's difficult, not harsh and harmful. Like this type of, it's not intentionally made. It's not giving a free pass to somebody to, point out everybody's weaknesses and flaws and be like, I'm just trying to help you grow, man. So I'm just going to pick the crap out of you. And then that turns into kicking the crap out of somebody. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not what I'm hearing you say. But I'm wanting to be clear because this type of pruning is so we produce fruit and then so that we can help prune other people. And how a fruit-bearing man approaches other people is you'll be able to, someone would be able to describe a fruit-bearing man as a loving man, a joyful man, a patient man, so a man who seeks out peace, those type of things, a kind man, someone who seeks goodness. Yeah, so like those these are all fruits of the spirit. And if you're wondering what that looks like, would someone say that you are a gentle person, you are a gentle man? Like, and if like, no, like all these things that you just listed, patience, joyfulness, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, those don't sound strong. You're just freaking wrong. I challenge you to try to address things in that way. It's really hard.
Well, it's based in love. It's based in love. We need not look further than like go to 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul writes, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud, it does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Think about that, right? Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. So,
Yeah, slow to anger too. Slow, like think about the work that has to be put in to be slow to anger in things.
yeah. Yeah, I almost felt like with me personally in this last week, I felt God show up in a way that was like deeply loving, almost like I'd felt his presence like I hadn't in years. And I mean this,
That's
but it
great.
was like, wake up. It was like, it was that protecting, trusting, hoping, but it was truth, right? It says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. I think tough grace manifests as oftentimes, like humanly, when someone has approached me almost in tears, but like, you need to look at this in your life. It's a challenge. It might not feel good, but it's from a place of love. Like, I care about you enough to tell you the truth, even if the truth hurts. To your point, not to harm, not because I want to embarrass you, not because I want to, I want to point out how great I am and how terrible you are, but out of deep love and concern, patient, not wanting to dishonor, as it says in 1 Corinthians 13, right?
Yeah, it's a. I think we, especially as men, we get this idea that like in order for us to be strong, um, we have to just like give up on the. I think the strength that Christ often talks about doesn't look like the hard power that a lot of people think it's like that's what a strong person should do is just be like unyielding in the things that don't matter. Like I'm just going to be not looking at a situation from the perspective of I'm going to care deeply about this person, whereas where I'm going to not be loving because I said this and I'm not going to be able to hear a different idea or perspective or why they did that thing, or I just think it's wrong, therefore they are wrong, they are bad. I'm not going to put any effort into connecting deeply with them, which is what like that is opportunity. When someone screws up, there's almost no better opportunity to connect more deeply with them, because when you see something or they admit that they've screwed up, they're like laying themselves out for you to hurt them, for you to use that mistake against them.
Which would be a very worldly, evil way to look at it. But it's normal for us because we're not, we struggle with being evil.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you hurt me, I get to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's two big errors here, right? There's probably more than that, but there's two big ones. There's I think the mistake of just I don't want I'm not perfect, or I don't really love them, so I'm just not going to say anything.
So no accountability.
No accountability. You don't really care about them because you're not willing to have the hard conversation with yourself or them. But then there's the opposite side that's just as destructive, which is like self-righteous. Like, I want to point out your faults because I'm right. I have all the answers. and I want you to feel gross. And that's not loving either.
Yeah, it's a one sided accountability, which I don't even know how to I know that there's a word. I'm just failing to find it. Where one of it's just like I'm not going to hold someone accountable from one side, where it's just non-existent, and then the other side is just one side where I will only hold you accountable, but you can't hold me accountable because my
It's
power is.
self-righteous.
Yes, it's this. Yeah, self-righteous. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, you did say it.
Well, no, you might have been thinking about a different word, but I really think that's rooted in self-righteousness. Like I can see your faults, but I'm not looking in the mirror.
Or I'm not going to let you say anything about mine. Like those, both of those ditches on this like road towards a, I would call like it's like a strengthen. You have to be strong enough to be soft.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a strength to be soft.
And so like, I think as men, like think about like we want to be seen as strong people. We want like that. That's who we want to be. We want to be able to protect, and you have to be strong to be able to protect. So it takes a maturity, and I would say like you have to have a strong backbone to be gentle with someone.
This is why Jesus says in Matthew 5, I know we're bouncing around the Bible here, but like, right? He says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. What's meekness? Meekness is power under control.
It's a sheathed sword.
So it's like you may be able to just burst in anger. You may be indignant. You may be, but man, it takes such power and courage to be meek. And that's what Jesus modeled as the Son of God, to allow humans to murder him unjustly because he knew it stood for a greater purpose. That took perfect meekness, power under control.
Yeah, we think about like how Jesus like this is like the full humanness and full godness of Jesus is mind-boggling to me. In this, he's the most powerful human being to ever walk the face of the planet, and how he lived his life. He did it every single frickin' step intentionally to show us what true power looks like, because he was the most powerful person to ever walk the face of the planet in the history of the world. And then we see like we're like, man, that's what true strength is that type of life. And then as men, we look around, it's like, well, who is a strong, powerful person? It's like someone who can beat the crap out of somebody. Oh, that's strength. It's like, yeah, whatever. Like
You
it's just
nailed
kind
it.
of yeah, it's just kind of like
We tend to think of earthly power as a means to crush others. But Jesus showed us that true power is being able to have all the power and use that power to serve others, not to crush them.
to defend the weak, to serve those who need it, and then empowering those who can serve others to do it so that it can multiply. It's not about me. It's like, oh, it's not about, it's even further than just serving others. It's about saying, I want to live in such a way that other people can see that they can serve. And it's not, I'm not the only one who can serve, because it's not, I'm going to build influence and power because I'm the most service minded person, or I'm the most helpful, or I'm the most kind. It's that, because that in and of itself, it's revealing where we think our power is. And the closer we get to Jesus, the more we realize that like, we have to keep giving up these things that we think are going to get us power or control. So it's not like I think wanting to be able to see that apart from Christ, I am nothing does not mean that I am worthless. It's I am a better, more fulfilled, purposeful person the closer I am to Christ, because I can live fully into who I am. It's not denying who I am. It's living fully into the person that I am. And the person that I am is someone who God created and loved. I don't think any of us would want our kids or the people we care about most just like, hey, I want you to do really well, so I want you to like demonize yourself and say you're worthless and no one should like you because, apart from God, you're nothing. That's not what God is saying. He's saying be abide with me, relate with me, communicate, commune with me, so you can live a life that is full. Not, yeah, that's really important. And then what that looks like isn't tearing down other people with the power that we have in Christ. It's serving other people and welcoming them into this family, this community of other believers that's not afraid of your weaknesses, that's not afraid of your faults. That is a place for healing so that you can go out and heal other people.
Yeah, it's as if Jesus is saying, like, everyone wants to flourish, and often people use their power to crush others because they think that's the way to get ahead. But what people find, and what I find, and what you find, what we all find, is when we live our lives that way, it doesn't lead to flourishing. It doesn't lead to flourishing for me. Enough is never enough. And so, since we're made in the image of God, it's as if Jesus is saying, if you want to live a satisfied, flourishing life, the only way to do that is to abide in me. The only way to live a meek life with power under control, the only way to bear fruit is to be in me. It's not that you don't matter, it's for you to actually matter. You have to abide in me. You have to trust me. That's why he says, I'm the vine, you're the branches, the life source, the source of true power, the source of true joy, the source of all those fruits of the Spirit, right? Everything we read in First Corinthians, love is patient. The source of our patience and our kindness is in the vine, is in Christ. And it's when we try to do it on our own that we become narcissistic, and we bear the weight of trying to create all of that on our own. And I know from personal experience that is what's crushing. That is what is overwhelmingly anxiety inducing, because we're left to try to control it all on our own, and we inevitably become really selfish, and that's not the way to flourish. And that's why, to your point, that's why Jesus is inviting us. Yeah, he's not saying you're not important. He's saying you're so important to me as an image bearer of God that when you find yourself in me, that's where you find fulfillment. That's where you find the love that you so desire.
This pruning that you that we're like that topic that we're coming to, or that we've been talking around. What are the if we're in a pruning season? How do we know how long to just like how long is this gonna last? How do we persevere through these type of seasons? Because there's gonna be another one. Like we might be in the middle of one. You might be in the middle of one right now. Someone who's hearing this may feel like they're in the middle of a pruning or it's just starting. What can we expect? Like, how long does this last? How do you process through that?
It's a great question. But like a lot of things, right, I think it's an unanswerable question. Um, because I think at the end of the day, that the invitation is to trust. And I'm learning more and more that's really hard. Because trust means, like, God, I trust that you're good no matter what I'm facing. And my proclivity personally is to take control. In other words, not trust. Even your question, if we really look at it, is rooted in how do I control it? When will it be over? It's a control question. How can it, what steps can I take to where I can get to the finish line? And I don't know about you, maybe you have a different answer, but I'm beginning to think that maybe this is always a part of our journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that is what I believe that um, pruning should always be. We're just using pruning as the term right now. To me, it's growth. It's a personal challenge. It's whatever season I am in. I'm going to be in a season. It just depends on what is the challenge of that season. It's not about I'm going to have a season where there's no challenges, where there's no difficulty. It's I am learning. If I'm always learning, I'm going to be growing. So I want to live in such a way where the process in which I live is looking for the learning opportunities so that I can grow. So pruning will always be a part of my life. Some of them might be more painful, but the ones that I'm going through now are preparing me for when something else happens, or when another surprise, or if it may not be my season of my, like the challenge that I'm currently in might be walking alongside someone else who's going through something really heavy. And that's the thing that I'm helping bear the burdens for. But it's always there.
It's always there. And maybe this is a good place to end, but I just recognize this big time in myself, but we see this at the refuge a lot. Like, I think back, like 2023 was a big growth year for me. I just was foot on the gas of my own development in a lot of ways there, meeting with a coach and doing the work, basically a mentor. And I feel like in some ways I took my foot off the gas. Not to say that I don't mean this in like a speed metaphor. I just mean like I was really working on being healthier and working through my crap. And I think that I stopped being that attuned to where I am. And I've noticed a lot of crap because of that. And my point is as we see this in the refuge a lot, where I think guys go through the 13-month process, and unfortunately some guys, when they finish, they take their foot off the pedal and they're like, oh, I've arrived, I'm done, I can take a break. And I think you're right on, Austin. Like, that's not the point. Like, I think we always have to be awake and paying attention, because we're always going to be met with new challenges. If we think we're going to get to a place where there is no challenge, I think that is an unhealthy expectation, because that expectation is going to be blown up. Because to your point, some seasons may be more challenging than others in our life, but there's always going to be a challenge. And I think we have to do our best to be awake to it and to stay in the fight and to remain vigilant about our growth and about our character, because the goal isn't to arrive. This is a lifelong endeavor. This is a lifelong endeavor. And I've just noticed for me, if I don't stay intentional, which is one of our cultural traits at the refuge, if I don't stay intentional with my own development, I'm not going to end up in a good place. And I don't think I'm unique in that. I think that's true for all of us.
Yeah, the reality is none of us are going to end up at the end of our lives in the place we thought we were going to be. So we might as well try to be intentional to live the one we want to live while we're here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Relational Recovery Podcast. We'll be back soon with a new conversation. We'll see you then.